So I think John already went through like who was new and who had been here before, but each assembly we start by just giving a brief summary of what assembly is. 100% celebration of life. We come from nothing, we go to nothing. Let's enjoy the time we have together here. The Sunday Assembly motto is live better, help often, and wonder more. We're not going to tell you how to live your best life, but if we can help you do it, we're going to try. So a couple weeks ago, we went to the Sunday Assembly Conference in San Diego. When I say we, it was me, Kevin, Sierra, Sean, John. Some of you are familiar with these people, some of you aren't. And it was amazing. And if you don't know, Sunday Assembly is international. It's not just Vegas, it's not just the United States. There's an assembly in New Zealand, South Africa, Belgium, few in England. Originally started in England, so we have people from all over the world. We alternate sides of the pond for conferences. Last year was Utrecht by Amsterdam, and this year was San Diego. Next year might be Scotland. They're trying to figure that out right now, which I'm excited about. And then the year after that will be back here in the United States. If you have the financial wherewithal to go, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing thing. It's being in a room full of people, like 100 to 200 people who all represent that. Get shit done, know how to have fun, and then they're all circled in there. And I came away just completely energized and revitalized and refocused, particularly with the idea of making this a joyous celebration of life. We have had some times where we've shied away from things, from the worry of maybe alienating people who are a little more on the sedate side, who are maybe a little scared of that churchy experience, that if we come too close to being a churchy experience, even without supernatural involvement, that people will go away. The realization I had is that if somebody comes into this room and says, you know what, this is too joyous and exuberant, maybe they're not assembly people. Like, and I definitely don't want anybody coming in for that experience and walking away going, meh, I could have gone and seen a lecture, you know. So, a couple little things that we came away with. We have in our charter that we are a radically inclusive congregation that celebrates life. And radically inclusive is a wonderful thing to say, but with the organizers, and there's hundreds of them around the world, what does that actually mean? Because there are times in life where people don't fit into a group. If we're radically inclusive and we have members who are trans or gay, and we have people coming who are openly transphobic or homophobic, do we have a say if it says radically inclusive? So the Sunday Assembly, I forgot which one in California, came up with that. We welcome all who welcome all. Literally this morning, Kevin and Sierra were pressing it on the t-shirts. So we want, And another phrase, we practice science-based altruism. So we don't have a book telling us what we're supposed to do. We're certainly not believing in a God that's telling us what to do. So the way we figure it out is things that are demonstrably good for us and good for other people. And even just the fact that people who do volunteer, who give themselves in service of others, studies have shown they live happier, more fulfilled lives. So, you know, we volunteer, we help each other because science. And it's a little bit of a fast transition here, but I got through mostly everything I wanted to say. Okay, and we're going to get to our speakers today. Matthew O'Brien is an author, editor, and adjunct professor who has lived in Las Vegas since 1997. His books include Beneath the Neon, Life and Death in the Tunnels of Las Vegas, and My Week at the Blue Angel and Other Stories from the Storm Drains, Strip Clubs, and Trailer Parks of Las Vegas. He's also the founder of Shine a Light, a community project that provides housing, drug counseling, and other services to people living in the drains. We are very lucky to have him because he is not going to be a Las Vegan for much longer. Let's give a warm welcome to Matt O'Brien.
So it was the spring of 2002. I was the managing editor at City Life newspaper, and I was chained to my desk reading the morning paper, and I read about a guy named Timmy T.J. Weber. It was a big case in Las Vegas at the time. He had murdered his living girlfriend, one of her young teenage sons, and raped one of her young daughters, and was on the run. He was actually featured on America's Most Wanted. And he had finally been captured in the RJ. It's good? Yeah. Okay. He had finally been captured, and the RJ wrote a story about it. And he had mentioned, it was the throwaway paragraph at the end, that he had used the underground flood channels to go underneath the dragnet the police had set up for him. And that really captured my imagination. I wondered what he experienced down in these underground flood channels, what he heard, what he saw, what he smelled. But again, I was managing editor and buried in paperwork, but we had a freelance writer, kind of a Hunter S. Thompson gonzo type named Josh Ellis. Some of you may know Josh. So I said, Josh, go check out these sewers. I didn't even know the terminology of these things. And I called Josh a week later and said, you know, how'd it go? And he explained he had walked a tunnel that started downtown near Cashman Field and went about 5 miles north and emptied at the Las Vegas Wash, and there was water in it, and there was crawfish swimming around, and he would look up the manhole shafts and see clothing hanging down. And not knowing anything about this world, I was fascinated. I said, well, go check some more of these places out. And he, if you know Josh, he, like all of us, he struggled at times. He was living at home with his mom, didn't have a car. So I said, look, I'll pick you up this weekend and we'll drive around and see if we can find some more of these tunnels. And so that's how it got started. Josh and I, heavily armed, and frightened, we're driving around looking for these channels. We didn't have a map. We didn't really know where these were. I think we were both wearing hard hats. He was in a trench coat and carrying a big knife. I had a golf club that I was using for a walking stick and for self-defense if necessary. And we would find a tunnel and come up on it, and we would just yell from the outside, hello, anyone in here? As if someone was going to say, yeah, come on in, guys. And then we would gradually creep in, and we found enough interesting stuff down there that we wrote 2 cover stories for City Life that kind of went viral before that was even a word. And so we knew there was something there. Josh ended up moving to the Bay Area, and Josh and I looked at like 5 or 6 of these tunnels, interviewed a few people. There are more than 200 miles of tunnels beneath Las Vegas, and I wanted to see what else was down there. We had seen enough to really get my interest. So in the summer of 2004, I took a sabbatical from City Life newspaper and explored all the underground flood channels, or as many as I could. Not heavily armed. I had an expandable baton in the small of my back, and I was dressed more kind of typically, wanted to blend in a little more. And I had a wire mic clipped to my collar, hanging from a holster on my hip, because you have to hold a flashlight and walk, and you need balance and stuff. So I explored all the underground flood channels and found hundreds of people living down there. That was not common knowledge. When I told Josh to go check these sewers out, I was thinking he would find some ironic debris, some graffiti, some weird stuff like that. I was not expecting for hundreds of people to be living down in these flood channels. So that research, along with the research Josh and I had done, were incorporated into my first book, Beneath the Neon. And it's basically me, a first-person narrative of me taking a flashlight and this baton and walking the tunnels. And it's my observations on what's above ground. A few of these tunnels go under landmarks, Caesar's Palace, MGM Grand, the Hard Rock. One of the worst skid rows I've seen in my life was a bunch of heroin addicts living beneath the Hard Rock Hotel Casino when it was a really hip happening casino. And part of the idea of the book was that I wanted to raise awareness of this, the fact that people were living down in these tunnels, some as old as 70 years old, some as young as teenagers, living down there. And I was hoping that the government or a local nonprofit would do something to help the people. Of course, my worst fear was that the cops would go down there and just sweep everyone out. We have a history of criminalizing the homeless here in Las Vegas. Neither one of those were realized, so I did something that I've really never done. As a journalist, I always felt, or I was told, that you can't be too involved in the issue, you can't be conflicted. But I wanted to give something back to the people who I met down there who had shared their life story with me. So in 2009, I started a community project called Shine a Light. It's very grassroots. It's me working with anyone who wants to do anything to help the people who are living down in there. It started with me just going down with the census group to count homeless in the tunnels, or as many as we could. And then it morphed into me, family members sending me mail that I would carry down into the tunnels for the people who live down there. A lot of them don't have mailboxes, that's a big problem. People donating bottled water to me that I would take down during the summertime. I did a video with CrowdRise, an online fundraising website, and we raised $15,000 in 24 hours for Shine a Light, which I had never really tried to get a budget for it before, but so that was great as well. So, Beneath the Neon was a very dark documentary style book about the people living down there and their struggles and their hopes of getting out, but there wasn't much of a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So I realized through Shine a Light, through organizations like Help of Southern Nevada, US Vets, or just on their own, hundreds of people have gotten out of these tunnels and turned their lives around. So my latest book project is I'm interviewing people who have made it out of these tunnels. And they have some incredible stories of redemption. I start by asking them what's your earliest memory, and I work up to high school, them moving to Las Vegas, discovering the tunnels, what their life was like in the tunnels, and more so, how did you get out of the tunnels? What are the lessons you learned on this remarkable journey? And I want this book to be more educational and inspirational than my first one. I've interviewed 32 people so far. And the research for this book allowed me to come across a person I had not known in the tunnels. I went down there the summer of 2004, and I've gone back and forth down in there off and on for many years, but mostly the central tunnels, the ones around the Strip and downtown. But a guy named David Strickland put me in touch with a guy named Paul, and I went over to Paul's house and interviewed him, and he shared his remarkable story with me. So I would like to introduce Paul to come up and share his story with me.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul, and first of all, thank you guys for having me here. This is pretty cool. It's pretty cool what you guys got going on here, and I respect that. I don't know, not never, but I've just kind of gotten into this whole public speaking thing outside of what it is that I'm involved in, so I'll just kind of tell my story and how I found the tunnels and kind of how I made it out. But I grew up in this town. I was born and raised in this town. Vegas is pretty much all I've ever known. My mom was very involved in drugs and alcohol. When I was growing up, she was actually a working girl for most of my life as a child. And so I was back and forth to a lot of different families. I moved around a lot, and I kind of saw her and what she was doing, and I had told myself for many years, like, I wasn't going to be like her. I wasn't going to end up the way that she was, living her life. And So I ventured off and I got into theater at a really young age. It was something that kind of turned my attention away from the real world. And I got really, really involved in theater. And through that interest, I got accepted into the Las Vegas Academy out here as a theater major. And that's really kind of where I got comfortable first in life. I really didn't fit in anywhere prior to this. I felt very alone and isolated prior to this. And at LVA, I kind of came into myself and got really comfortable with the environment and really kind of started to dive in to finding myself, really. And through that came drugs and alcohol. And you know, as a teenager and not really having much parental guidance and completely forgetting, swearing it off forever, I decided, sure, why not? And thus started another 10 years of struggling with ups and downs with drugs and alcohol. And really, I could say that there was a period where it was fun, and then there was a period where there was fun and problems, and then there was a period where there was just problems. And I lived in those problems, I would say, for about 6 years, where I was homeless for the first time. Well, I was homeless my sophomore year for a couple months, but I was homeless for the first time in adulthood at like 19 years old. And I lived above ground and on top, as people talk about it. And I was homeless in a car, and I kind of pulled myself out of that and got motivated and went to school. And I was a heroin addict, and so I would make it a few months, and I was doing okay, and then something would draw me back into it, and something would draw me back into it, and I could never really refocus myself positively. I always seemed to run into some kind of wall that would pull me back in, and so as time went by, eventually any kind of bridge that I ever had formed faded. My family really didn't want to have anything to do with me. Any kind of friendship that I had ever created was fading away, and eventually it was just me, my backpack, and homelessness. And I did that for about a year and a half, and one day I was out in front of an In-N-Out, and I was panhandling, and there was about 4 or 5 guys, bigger guys, and we call them old-timers. These guys, you know who they are. They've been homeless for years. One guy's got dreads down to his waist that he's been growing since he started being homeless. And they kind of came up to me and they tried aggressively to get me to move on. And you know, I had reached a point where I never really thought I want to die. Like, I'm over life. But I kind of got to a point where I didn't care. I didn't care what happened. I woke up, it didn't matter what the end of the day looked like. It didn't really cross my mind that there was, gotta protect myself. Like, my self-preservation skills had gone out the door. And I stood up to like these guys, and I was kind of rewarded, I guess, if you could say that, in the sense that they left me alone, and a couple hours later, one of the guys that was there came up to me and he's like, you know what, kid, you got heart. And he's like, why don't you come on down to where we stay? And I had heard about the tunnels. I knew about them. But one of the things that I knew very well about them is you don't go down there. You don't just welcome yourself down there. It's nothing, it's a whole different game. It's by invite only, if that makes sense. Like as if it's some kind of, you know, club. And but that's really, by all effect, what it is. And I had gotten my invite, and I went down there with them, and you know, it's in retrospect, I look back and I think to myself, like, what a sad state of affairs, or really the insanity that I was living in. But when I got down there, I felt a sense of relief. Because one, I had walls and a roof again. I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, we got four walls around us down here. And they had couches, and they had dressers, and they had fire pits, and they had mattresses and beds. And it was like a whole new game. And when I went down there, there was about 15 people in that particular stretch of tunnel, and it's about 1.5 miles long. And there was certain rules. One, there was a way to come in and go out, and it was a call, and that way they knew that who was coming in lived there. And the other one was is that you didn't mess with anybody else's stuff. Like that was like major no-no. The other was basically what you see here, you let it stay here. Because it's its own, it's like the Wild West. There's its own set of laws and its own set of morals and the way they handle their problems down there. And lastly, it was that you don't bring anybody else down here. This is ours. You know, this isn't for you to just bring. And I think I followed every one of those rules except for the last one. Because I got this brilliant idea that I was going to change this and I was going to start selling drugs out of the flood channels, and the cops would never find me because they weren't going to come down here. And that was the name of the game for me. And eventually I stayed down there for a total of 3 years. And by the time it was over, I was the only one left in that stretch. They had all left, and I would run into them up top, and I would be like, "Hey man, where you at?" And they're like, "Oh, we're in a different tunnel." And I'm like, "Yeah, where's that?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm good." You know, I become unwanted amongst the unwanted, and yeah, you know, I mean, that's kind of a low place to be, you know. And, no pun intended, right? And so, anyway, you know, I can tell you this, is my experience in the tunnels, if I had 2-3 hours to explain it to you, it would still be in part. So much happened down there, so many moments that I think truly it was just me and my insanity at battle, and I had kind of resigned to the fact that there was no way out. I really kind of came to the idea that I wasn't going to be able to pull myself out of this. There was no escape, and I spent days in there. Well, you know, okay. So one time, just real quick, it was raining, and I'm standing at the end of the tunnel, and it was an entrance that was about 1.5 miles away from where my camp was, and I'm watching the water rise because it's raining, and I'm standing there watching it. Something came over me, because usually we just say, "Oh, there it goes," you know, there goes all our stuff, and I'm watching the mattress come out, and the dresser come out, and then the door come out. I don't know why I had a door, but I had a door, and the door come out, and I'm like, you know, and I was so tired of watching my stuff just get washed away, and so I just went running into the tunnel against the stream, and to this day I can never tell you why. There was just this sense of like it didn't matter. And I went running into the tunnel, and I tried to grab everything I could save. And that was pretty much my life every couple months. Every couple months, everything I would build up would get washed away. And one day I was sitting down there, and I like to say that a cricket saved my life. 2 cops and a cricket. And this is something I will tell you forever. 2 cops and a cricket saved my life, because I was sitting down there, and more so the cricket than the cops. I'm going to give real credit where credit's due, you know. And I'm sitting there, and I'm doing my thing, and I got my flashlight on my head, and I was really good at finding the best of the best, and this flashlight was really bright, and I'm doing my thing, and I remember saying to myself I was going to leave. And my exit strategy was I was going to go live in a tunnel in Summerlin, because I was in Henderson. You know what I mean? That was my exit strategy, was get out of Henderson and go and live in a tunnel in Summerlin. And to me, it was a good exit strategy, you know? And I'm sitting there and I'm doing my thing, and this cricket jumps in my line of sight. And this isn't the first time, and if I had stayed down there any longer, it sure wouldn't have been the last. And I started having a conversation with this cricket. It was this big black cricket. And I told him, like, he kind of kept jumping a little bit closer, and I'm like, "Don't you do it, man." And he jumps right at me, and I freak out, and I throw everything that was on my lap all over around me, and now I catch this resentment against this cricket because he ruined my night, and I spent the next 1.5 hours trying to find that cricket out of a resentment. You know, I was going to kill this cricket for ruining my night, and as I'm looking for this cricket, I see 2 bright lights hit the end of the tunnel, and I knew who they were. There was only one set of people that found the brighter flashlight than I, and that was the cops. You know, they had access to flashlights that I would kill for, and they came in and they asked me my name and my social, and I remember I paused for a minute because I had I mean, I had lied to the cops plenty of times before, and I knew I had warrants, and I sit there and I stared at them, and I thought, well, I know one thing. I know that their radios don't work in the tunnel. So I could give them any name and any social I want, but I would have plenty of time to get away before they could actually run anything. And I stood there for a minute, and I stared at them, and I just kind of exhaustingly just gave them my real information. And they were like, so how long would it take you to get your stuff and come out? And I said, 2 minutes. And they said, okay. And they go walking out one end of the tunnel, and I go running out the other. And I'm running in the dark, which I got really good at. Let me explain. Like anytime, and I had trained myself to do this. Anytime I tried to do this prior, I would run into a wall and find myself on the ground, and constantly, because it's pitch black down there, and I ran down this whole tunnel in the pitch black, and I made it out. And I had my headlight, mind you, around my neck. Not any kind of wherewithal to turn that on, but it's all right. You know what I mean? I make it all the way out the tunnel, and I scale this 9-foot wall, and like I have this like immaculate escape, and I get to the finish line and decide that I wasn't going to run. There was some kind of surrender, and I thought, you know what, all I really want is a cigarette and a Dr. Pepper, and I'm good. You know, and I did just that. I walk over to Panera Bread, I get a Dr. Pepper, I bum the cigarette, and I stand outside and smoking it outside of Lowe's, and the cop rolls up and he goes, what happened? And I go, you asked me to leave. He goes, I asked you to come out. I said, well, I came out. I don't understand what the problem is. He's like, well, you know you have warrants. And I was like, yeah, I know. And so he takes me to jail. And in my mind, I had a year over my head, and I thought, well, that's probably the best thing for me. I mean, three hots in a cot, as they call it. You know, I've fed better than I had ever been fed in the last 3 years. And 50 days into it, a judge pulls me into his courtroom, and he says, how about drug court? I said, sure, man. Like, why not? You know what I mean? Like, when are you going to let me out? And he's like, I'll let you out next week. And I'm like, well, then I'll do it. You know what I mean? Let's do drug court. You know, from there, they offered me a set of skills and a set of opportunities that I really didn't know how to redeem. Like, I didn't know how to go out and do these things on my own. And they gave me a set of things to do and a little bit of guidance, and I followed through with these things. And in lieu of that, I started to kind of rebuild my self-esteem. I started to kind of feel good about who I was again, and what I was capable of doing, and that I didn't have to get lost in this pattern of things that I had been doing for so long, and I didn't have to be like her, and I could actually find myself again, and I proceeded to do that. And the opportunities that have presented themselves are in spite of me, not because of me, because my best ideas landed me in a tunnel for 3 years talking to crickets. You know what I mean? And I listened to these people, and slowly but surely I had a psychic change, and that really became more focused on moving my life forward. And I met a woman that I got married to, and I've had a kid. And now today I'm the program manager at an inpatient treatment facility, and I help guys that are coming off the streets on their way to prison in drug court get on their feet and move forward with their lives. And that's something that, you know what I mean? In August 21st, I'll be sober, clean and sober for 3 years. Which means that today, 3 years ago, I was sitting in the tunnel with a flashlight on my head, and if you had told me today, 3 years ago, that I would be standing here with this opportunity, coming where I've come from, standing where I am today, I was so hopeless that I would really not have even laughed. To be honest with you, I just wouldn't have even heard it. There would have been no real, like, I couldn't have even fantasized at that idea because I was so hopeless, you know? And where I'm at today is something that I can tell you simply came and was born out of opportunity that I just grabbed a hold of. That's really all it was. Is I had the option to go left or right, and for the first time in my life, I went right. And that's really all I can say, and I really appreciate you guys having me here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Paul, for sharing that story.